Call our meeting back to order. Next item on our agenda, we're actually going to table for a few minutes the concept contract for legal services. We have two other things I'd like to try to get to because we do have some people from Boston here to make a presentation, which will be our next item after this current one.
Plus, we're not being billed for the legal services time.
Right. Under our current situation.
Exactly. Just want to point that out.
So we have an application for a commercial shellfish license from Nicholas Sanzali.
Okay.
Is Nick here? And the next item will be dealing with the interviews with the Spring Bars Road applicants.
Okay.
Mr. Sanzali.
I request that my commercial license be reinstated. I had a license back in, I think it was 2013, but I was in the middle of a chemotherapy treatment without knowing my progress. I finished that, and now being in the water is very therapeutic. There's no pressure on my legs, and it's given me an opportunity to be physically active again. It's about the therapy, really. I used to shellfish years ago. I'm out of options. I can't do traditional work. I had a Class A driver's license. I can't sit for long periods of time. I can't stand. I can't walk. Far distances, my ankle swells up my knees. But being in the water, it's like, it's awesome.
Okay, I think as you know, we did put a limit on the number of commercial shellfish licenses that we had in town a few years ago. And we do have a recommendation from the shellfish warden or the constable, the deputy director, that we should try to limit the commercial licenses to what we've put forward. But that certainly is his recommendation, but it is our decision.
Sir, when the licenses were due to be renewed, and you could have one the following year, I had my license, and I would have kept it active. But due to the fact I was doing the 3-year chemotherapy plan, I really didn't know whether I'd walk again. I couldn't justify spending $300 for a license and $75 for a state, not knowing whether I'd ever be able to do it again. But through the treatment, we've suppressed my immune system, and I can't work out, I can't walk far, I can't get my heartbeat elevated unless I'm in the water. In the water, I can walk backwards, I'm physically active, I'm losing weight, and I never planned on having MS, but I do. And everything that I made preparations for in my living, Class A driver's license, I can't type, my left hand doesn't work correctly. So I'm asking for my license back.
I just want to explain the situation. I think the deputy director's recommendation is based on the number of licenses. I think that is completely appropriate for him to make that recommendation. I think it's appropriate for us as the board to weigh all the options and make our own decision. I don't think we necessarily have to follow what his recommendation. I don't think he'd be offended if we chose to take a different action. But I think as the one who controls the licenses, it's appropriate for him to make that recommendation.
Okay.
Mr. Patterson?
Well, I would say that Mr. Sanzali's argument that he once held the license and due to health reasons he chose to give it up, not knowing what the future was, sort of says we almost could consider this to be a grandfathering of a license that once existed. And that's kind of the way I like it to look at it. I think we're not setting a dangerous precedent here by bumping up a maximum for this kind of a circumstance. So I would be in favor of making an exception in this case.
I agree with everything that Sam just said. I think it's a point that there's some compassion in life when we sit up here and make different decisions, and I think the time has come. With compassion for a person who didn't plan one thing that had happened, and if this license makes life a little easier for someone, I would vote that he would have a license regardless what the limit would be. It is something personal.
I second that.
We have a
Oh,
motion and a second
okay.
to renew his shellfish permit.
Mm-hmm.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Congratulations. Our next item on our agenda is to hear presentations on the Spring Bars Road Affordable Housing Project. We have two different groups, the Falmouth Housing Corp., Affirmative Investments, and the Stratford Capital Group. We do have a committee who's going to be making a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen on these two proposals. They have asked us to conduct this interview, hear the presentations, ask any questions, but we're not going to make any decision tonight. They'll come back to a recommendation for us, which we will then make a decision in the future.
Can I ask when that will be? Will it be before town meeting?
The committee will reconvene next week, and if they feel they're satisfied that all their questions have been answered and there's no more material for them to evaluate, then they will transmit a recommendation to the town manager.
Great.
We do have an article at town meeting on this, and so if there's any way we can have that information in hand, it would be very, very useful.
Right.
All right, so first we'll hear from the Falmouth Housing Corp.
Hi, thank you to the Board of Selectmen for inviting us here this evening. We're handing out just some brochures. It says who we are, who each of us are, so you can ask questions by name if you need to, and shows a site plan. I'm going to have, Jill, do you want to go? Oh, yeah. Okay. So I'm Tara Mizrahi. I am principal at Affirmative Investments. We are one of the proposed co-developers of the Springs Bar property. We're excited to present our team to you and our vision for the site. We do understand that you'd like a large focus of the presentation tonight to be answer questions about why we're confident we can build high-quality housing in a flood-prone environment. So if we breeze through some of the other stuff too quickly, we're going to leave time at the end for questions. So I'd like to first just introduce you to who we have as part of our team here today. We have a very well-qualified and very local team. Our partners are the Falmouth Housing Corporation and Linda Clark. We also have Davis Square Architects, who have significant CAPE experience as well, and they're represented by one of their principals, Cliff Bomer. And then we have our site experts, who are both from Falmouth and can probably walk here if they needed to. Joel Kubik from Holmes and McGrath, our civil engineer right here, and Tom Lee of TL Studio, who's our landscape engineer. So just a little background on Affirmative Investments and Falmouth Housing Corporation. We've been partners for the last 14 years, and we've done 3 Falmouth housing developments, affordable housing developments in Falmouth together, which you probably know, and Linda might talk about more. Affirmative partners with nonprofit community groups and helps them take on larger and or more complex affordable housing and economic development projects. Over the years, Affirmatives facilitated the development of over 6,000 units of housing, and our mission is to build affordable housing and economic development. We're actually usually looking at sites that are difficult and have issues like Springs Bars does. Springs Bars has a lot of great things, but I think that you're focused on one of the harder ones, which is the flood-prone nature. So we're also committed to the committees that we work in, and we like to partner with communities and do repeat projects. So making sure that we develop this property with the long view in mind so that it's sustainable and resilient is critical to our company. We succeed in this, and we're used to this challenge. And in fact, our last project completed was located in a floodplain as well, so we feel very comfortable with these issues. I'm going to turn it over to Linda Clark to talk a little bit about Falmouth Housing Corporation.
For those of you that don't know me, I'm Linda Clark, President and Director of Falmouth Housing Corporation, a 501c3 nonprofit organization with 7 board members. FHC is committed to developing, retaining ownership, and managing affordable housing for families, seniors, individuals who lack the economic resources to access quality, safe housing opportunities in our community. FHC currently owns and manages 192 affordable units here in Falmouth, including the most recent 11 affordable units in Woods Hole, which was completed in August of last year and was fully occupied September 1st. 7 months later, the original tenants remain housed and are stable. Falmouth Housing Corporation takes pride in appearance and maintenance of our properties, as well as good tenant relations. We have a tenant relations coordinator on staff to assist any of our tenants that may be in need of services in order to sustain their housing and obtaining a better quality of life. Falmouth Housing Corporation's office is conveniently located at 704 Main Street, and we do have an open door policy to all our tenants. Falmouth Housing Corporation and Affirmative Investments have had a long, strong relationship with projects here in Falmouth for well over a decade. We at Falmouth Housing Corporation and Affirmative Investments look forward to the opportunity to provide this much-needed service of locally owned and managed housing in our community and to continue our relationship with the town of Falmouth. I'll pass this on to Cliff, who's recently finished Natantico Woods with us. He was our architect, and he'll describe a little bit of what's going to go on with the site to home 40 mixed income household. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cliff Bomer.
You got to speak, the microphone's for the television, so that's the
Oh,
reason.
okay. I'm Cliff Bomer. I'm
You can
the,
carry it with you.
oh, okay, because I do want to point to some things. Thank you. I'm president and principal at Davis Square Architects. We're a 30-person firm that specializes in affordable housing, and as both Tara and Linda have said, we just recently completed the project here in Woods Hole. We should switch. I'll quickly go through the site plan because we do want to leave a lot of time for questions. So this is our proposed development. Quickly, it's 40 apartments, a mix of 3s, 2s, and 1s. There are 26 two-bedrooms, 10 one-bedroom units, and 4 three-bedroom apartments. The RFP that was let for the site was really interesting and created a lot of opportunities for really forward thinking, I think, including a big emphasis on accessibility and creating visitable units, as well as trying to exceed what the laws actually require as far as accessible units. And we've done that. We have 4 fully accessible units, and we have 25 of the 40 units are visitable, so there's first floor access to those units. It's a combination. What we're proposing is a combination of a double-loaded corridor building, which means there's a corridor in the middle, and we've made it especially skinny and a kind of aggregated look, so that it looks much like many buildings on the Cape that have been built up organically over the years, built up of a lot of smaller pieces. We made it nice and skinny so that we could have a real traditional roof form on the building rather than a big fat building where you end up having to have a flat roof. We use that building to help define a large space that is going to be used for both active and passive recreation on the site. In this building that's closer to the road, that's where all it's all 1s and 2s in that building. This L-shaped, the L-shaped structures down at the bottom are the larger family units. Those are 2 and 3 bedroom apartments that have direct access outside for playground space, picnic areas, and they're closest to the community center as well. We stayed on this side of the site. This is actually the highest point of the site, so we enter at the highest point of the site. And we concentrated the development over on this edge so that we could leave this whole large space available for future development, potentially as athletic fields. So we kept far away from there so we could really function independently. But at the same time, we did create some nature trails that go into the site. This one actually will double up as a second means of egress for fire equipment, a fire lane out to the road. We've created a planted buffer. These are all commercial properties on that side, so we've created a big buffer there that we think will really enhance the experience of the on-site for the residents and their visitors on the site. So again, our idea was really to use the buildings to help define really nice usable spaces to create a really nice environment for all the 40 families that would live there.
My name is Joel Kubik with Holmes & McGrath. We are the site civil engineers on this project. we have some familiarity with this site as we've worked on it in the past for another development. So I'll review those resources that are still the same as they always have been, and discuss any changes that have occurred since then. In the center of this site, there's the vernal pool with the bordering vegetated wetland around it. That's an Atlantic white cedar swamp, and little pond on the east side here with its bordering vegetated wetland. That's also subject to a riverfront area up in the trade center here. Along the inside here, this whole area has been mined out from the old concrete plant that used to be up in here. That building's been raised since just recently. So this area has been lowered quite significantly, as you can tell by some of the higher banks on either side of it. So the proposed development is well outside of that 100-foot buffer around that bordering vegetated wetland in the center, and all these other resource area buffers as well. The only resources that are impacted by this project directly are these coastal banks, which are the mined slopes from the gravel pit area, and this is land subject to coastal storm flowage. As you can see, here's the site here. This is all an AE elevation 12 flood zone, all the way up and through here, down this side of Little Pond, and this section of Little Pond. There's a velocity zone area identified by FEMA that's down in this area of Little Pond. So this whole area is subject to coastal storm flowage from a 100-year storm event. A little closer zoom in of this site, you can see these areas which are Zone X, which means they are not subject to a 100-year or even a 500-year flood event, because they are that higher area that was the natural topography of this section before it was mined out. So both sides of this are outside the flood zone, but here where we've that area has been mined is obviously lower, so that any flood events can come up into here and flow through. So what we're proposing as part of our development here is to fill in this area. That green line would be the new flood zone area. This would be subject to a 500-year storm, but that's not a special flood zone in accordance with flood insurance requirements. So this area would be outside the flood zone. These proposed buildings would have elevations of 14, which are 2 feet higher than that 100-year flood elevation, and this whole area would be raised up. And as Cliff said, this is the high end of the site, so that's a 500-year flood zone right there, where the traffic would exit onto Spring Bars Road and be able to get off site if need be. So again, this process that we would have to go through, you can see this line cutting through that lower proposed structure shows what we'd end up doing with that brown line being the existing grade, the green being the amount of fill in there, that blue checked line is that elevation 12 100-year flood elevation. So you can see again that steep embankment that's been excavated out on both sides, we're still well below that with the proposed fill that we're intending to create here. So just a little background, we've gone through this with a lot of different projects, working with FEMA, revising maps, and revising the specific site requirements for the topography on site to help them remap, because our surveys are more accurate oftentimes than FEMA's overall mapping procedure. So what we'd require for this process is this conditional letter of map revision based on fill, a C-Lomar F. So that's just a matter of sending that site plan into FEMA and showing those proposed grades versus what it exists, what their mapped regions are, and saying this is what we propose to do. They would come back with a conditional letter saying, okay, if you built it in that process, then it would not be subject to the special flood hazard requirements. And then you go forward and build it like that, and then you have to apply to them again and say we did it. It's another step. So through that whole process, eventually they're taken out of that flood zone. So Again, those wetland resources that I mentioned, the coastal storm flowage that we're currently in, and those coastal banks that are on either side of this area of development are subject to conservation jurisdiction, so we would have to go through them for any of that fill or any other development that would take place there. As you might know, right now, there is fill being placed there as part of the Little Pond sewer project, so there's big stockpiles and activity on actually both sides of that project site there as part of that. So a lot of that fill could possibly stay for this project, which was our intent. So I'm trying to skip through some of this pretty quickly because if you have any questions afterwards, I'd be happy to answer them, but I'm going to hand it over to Tom Lee to discuss the stormwater management.
My name's Tom Lee, and I'm with TL Studio Landscape Architects in Falmouth. Yep. My name's Tom Lee. I'm with TL Studio Landscape
That
Architects in
microphone only
Falmouth.
works for the TV, so to be louder, you just have to be louder.
Okay. So this is our last slide, but we're trying to address some of the on-site stormwater management techniques and methods that we would consider for this project. The first image on my right would be a stormwater garden in a parking lot, in a non-porous parking lot that you can see where the curb is depressed. The water is directed to flow into these vegetated swales that cleanse and allow stormwater infiltration. I'm going to go to the far end, but that's in another scenario, a similar technique of using a stormwater garden to collect roof runoff. You can see the building at the very corner of the photo. The middle, the most exciting photo of the parking lot, actually is a combination of non-permeable asphalt drive, and you can see the water collecting on the road, while the parking stalls are porous asphalt, and you can see how dry it appears just visually. And again, this is our last slide, so we're turning it over to questions.
I think we're actually going to hear the second presentation and then pull you back for questions.
Okay. Okay.
Level playing field.
We want to make sure we've heard every presentation before we question the presenters.
I'm not going to hear it, Kevin.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rich Hayden, and I'm a principal with the company Stratford Capital Group. We're one of the largest affordable housing developers based in Massachusetts. Okay, great. I'm here with my team, Janice Mamayak, who's our architect with Icon Architecture, Kelly Colleen, who is our civil engineer with CHA, and Kevin Murphy, who we've hired as a consultant to, if we're successful in being the proponent, then we would use him to navigate and coordinate things with the town, make sure that we're meeting all of the town's needs and what have you. So, there we go. Great. So I just want to point out that, again, we've developed over 50 affordable housing developments up and down the East Coast. Happen to also done a couple of deals here on the Cape. We finished a project in Yarmouth, which was a historic rehab and new construction, and we're about to, and as well in Bourne, we're about to start construction of another project as well. Very similar in size to the development that we're proposing here. Again, we're historic rehabilitation experts, not that that applies here. We are also, our shop is comprised of two business units, if you will. One is the development of affordable housing, and the other is as investors and syndicators, raising money institutionally and in investing in other developers' properties. And then at the end of the day, we're long-term holders of our assets. We don't flip them, we keep them long-term, and we're asset managers. Janice, you want to talk?
Sure.
So I'm Janice Mamayak. I'm a principal with Icon Architecture. We're a women-owned business in Boston of 40 creative individuals, multidisciplinary, with a vast experience in housing. So affordable housing is right in the middle of that mission. We like to say we do sensible green, so we integrate sustainable design into the maximum extent possible. Every project is different, but whether it be LEED or Enterprise Green Communities or whatever. We like to talk about our collaborative, malleable design process. So we're not here telling you exactly what this is going to look like. We know we're going to enter into a journey if we are chosen, and we're going to go find a vision together, which speaks to the transformative projects that are sensitive to the environment. And speaking to the environment, Kelly will talk about CHA.
Thank you, Janice. My name is Kelly Killeen from CHA. I'm Vice President with CHA. We are a national multidisciplinary engineering firm. You may have heard of us previously, Kohler & Colantonio. We recently bought in the past few years. Kohler & Colantonio has more of a local presence here than CHA. Our office is actually out of Norwell. We've been with this team for close to 10 years, about 8 to 10 projects. We've been involved with Richard and Janice on each one of those. My area of expertise is land development. I've been doing it for close to 25 years. All aspects of permitting, design, infrastructure. In this case, all aspects of the development, design, analysis, stormwater would be under our purview, as they have been on Richard's projects in the past.
So we just wanted to show you some images of our past projects as this development team, as was mentioned. We've been working together for 8-10 years or so, and this one is the most recent one that opened up last month up in Chelmsford. It's the first phase of, this was 58 units. So this is just one building of a collection of a variety of unit types. There's townhouses and a clubhouse involved in the first phase as well, with smaller buildings that are proposed in the next phase. Closer to home, down in Yarmouth, as Richard mentioned, the Simpkins School residence was not only a historic rehab, but working with the Cape Cod Commission, closely with the Cape Cod Commission, to develop the addition towards the back of the site, playing with the architecture of the voids and the roof forms and dormers and the like. This is indicative of a project that Icon has done, not necessarily with Stratford, but indicative of some of the townhouse styles that could be explored. In this one, this was Oak Grove Village, townhouses, mixed use. I have a few more slides of just, again, other townhouse type styles that we could develop. A variety of forms, variety of expressions. Central community as being the focus of that. Our Olmsted Green site, very large open site, but some of the strategies there were making very dense communities with rain garden scenarios that you can see in the center slide, but keeping the wide open vistas available. We did want to talk about some of our experience with flood-prone sites. We had a project in Bridgeport, Connecticut, that right after Hurricane Sandy, we were in the midst of design, and all the floodplains changed. So what we thought was something with very accessible or lower stoops, the floodplain was actually moved to 12. So, without advancing this, 12 feet above floor level was the whole nother level that we had to design around. So that brought into strategies of garages and first floor not being habitable living space, but speaking to a variety of different strategies, whether they be floodgates or raised up on columns. Again, we're not telling you what we're going to design for Springsboro Road. It will be a journey, and we'll figure that out together. So Kelly will talk a little bit about the site before I get back into the program.
Thank you. So the site itself, as you've heard previously, elevation 12 is the key here. That is the flood elevation. The majority of the site, these darker lines here, those are all elevation 10. The boundary and the resource being the major resource with the BVW here, the vernal pool. So we're going to have to be creative on this site. We've had other sites that we've worked with similar to this. where we bring the finished floor above and the garage under from the townhouse units. Maybe in this scenario, not that we've designed it yet, but maybe in this scenario, there's an elevated deck or first floor for parking under on the major structure. We'll certainly get into that as we design it. The key element being that in the event we don't get in and fill the entire site area for development, we have to recognize that elevation 12 is the key. So the finished floors are going to be up in the 13, 14 range. We have been out in this general vicinity to verify some of the elevations that were presented in the RFP. We brought our GPS crew down here, shot some spot shots up on the spring bar and a couple adjacent to the site just to verify that they are plus or minus, because we do know some of the history on the site itself that was presented in the RFP.
So then just looking at the proposed site plan as it was in our proposal, we've got, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. We propose the structures being built really close to spring bars so that development is on the highest part of the site as possible. A loop road. The number one here is where the clubhouse or community building would be as part of that front entry. A larger apartment building, garden-style building up here, and then three clusters of townhouse buildings wrapping that. The large building would have the 1s and 2s. I think a program is very similar to the prior applicant. 40 units, 4 of them are 3 bedrooms. All of the rest of the townhouses are 2 bedrooms, and a mix of 1 and 2s in the larger one. Surface parking, some of the townhouses, like 3 out of each 5 would have garages. Again, this is just one scenario. And then maintain a link to some of the proposed passive recreation on the adjacent parcel. So we have developed images, but again, this is looking at something that could be very accessible, knowing that now as we've dug deeper and found that base elevation is at 12 to 14, so we'd be building up at 14. This would be somewhat raised. We know that accessibility is imperative, so that would be part of that design solution of how do we work with ramps and raise maybe some fill. The solution could vary by building. So this would be looking at the community building. I keep hitting the wrong one. And what a cluster of the townhouses might look like. Again, the community building with a playground in the back and the larger building beyond, and a similar view there as well. So, we're going to talk about floodplain.
We did talk to HUD recently on the concern of funding a project within the floodplain, the 8-step process that we would have to go through to make sure that the project is eligible for funding. Richard's colleague and myself were speaking with HUD earlier this week. Obvious concern is whether they would support, through funding, the recommendation to fund this project. At face value, early in the process here, we don't see any constraints that would prohibit us from proceeding. Basically, it appears as though that we could move forward. Similar project that we've worked on in the past, although it's not an affordable project. This site here in Situate, on just off the banks of the North River, similar situation speaking to before, where the first level is actually garages. You really can't see it in this photo, but the living space is up here. Everything else is garage below because of the same flood concerns, flood elevations.
And so here, one last slide is to show there was a desire for some sort of potential public benefit, and what we would be prepared to do is make a contribution to the town and to develop potentially a soccer field here. Okay, so that would be what we're putting on the table to meet that objective of some sort of community benefit. So lastly, I just want to say, and I don't want to leave time, obviously, but is that we're in very, very good standing with DHCD, Department of Housing and Community Development, in terms of obtaining funding. We've always obtained funding for every project that we've undertaken. Always completed. It takes time. It's very time consuming and very competitive, but we know that we'll ultimately get there. The projects in Yarmouth and in Bourne were both in response to RFPs. So we do respond to RFPs all over the state that are targeted toward affordable housing. And then lastly, just to say that Stratford, this is all we do, okay? So we don't get involved in any other asset classes or real estate asset classes of any type. We just do affordable multifamily housing. And so this is our area of expertise. We don't endeavor to get involved in any other type of projects other than these.
So now we have questions for Stratford, and then we'll pull the Affirmative Investments Housing Corporation back for their questions. Ms. Moran.
Sure. Could you give me a little more detail on your flood mitigation strategies?
Sure. Sheldon?
Once we get out to, if we're successful in the award here, obviously we would go through and survey the whole site. We would establish the base elevations, and bring the elevation 12 onto the site. Depending on the layout here, we would attempt to keep these as close to the existing grade as we can. There is some opportunity elsewhere on the site, down in here, in the event that we need compensatory storage. If we were to pursue it that way, we could utilize that for our compensatory storage areas.
Excuse me, I'm sure not everybody does construction in the room. So you're basically saying you dig a big hole for the water flow back where those dots are? Is that what you're saying?
No, what we would do is, if I can bring this back on. Some portions of the site obviously are higher than others. These areas, as identified in the previous presentation and in this, are both above the flood elevation. There are areas right there that could be utilized to offset any potential fills on the site without having to go and potentially redraw the whole map there. We could bring, our loop road would come down and across and then back out. We could potentially take existing areas and offset any of our impacts from the buildings themselves or from the parking themselves, and get the credit or the compensatory area on the site itself. There's some areas down here as well that would offer some mitigation for us.
Mr. Patterson?
Yeah. So you're talking about putting the first floor at 14 feet to meet that flood requirement, is that right? So so the location of things like heating systems and various other mechanicals are not going to be an issue. Is it going to be like one central heating and ventilating system for the building, or are there going to be individual units for every little rental unit, I guess is the right way to put it? Can you answer some of those questions?
In our past projects, they've always been individual units. Even in the larger multifamily, they would be individual units that oftentimes will do a central domestic hot water, and there's no reason why that couldn't be on a higher level. We would not be putting anything below that base flood elevation.
Thank you.
Ms. Martha?
When you're going to build, such as you have just described to us, in a floodplain, in this zone, flood zone, is it more expensive for you to do that than if it were just in a field or a farm somewhere that you wouldn't have the same issues as you would have in a flood zone? Is it more costly? Whoever wants to answer?
Generically, yes, but, we'd work through all different kinds of strategies at our disposal. If you were to build a basement anyhow, you could, you'd be building those walls anyhow, and if you got floodgates in so the water could run through it, it wouldn't be that much more expensive. So depending upon the solution, obviously if you've got something at grade that you want accessible, You don't have to build a series of ramps or sloped walkways to get there. So that all is incremental, but not that it's going to impact the success of the project.
Well, the reason I ask is then I would think the price of each individual unit would be higher if you didn't have these additional costs because it's a floodplain.
The rent associated with each individual unit is dictated by HUD. So what would be adjusted is the other sources of financing that we would be getting from DHCD. The rents are going to be the same irrespective of the cost.
And what about the insurance?
The insurance is something that we've factored in. We've talked to our insurance agent. We know what those costs are going to be.
And does that raise the price of the rental?
No, no. The price of the rental is mandated by HUD. It's strictly dictated. We don't have the option.
Okay.
What percentage of the whole project can be built above the floodplain? Or on the converse, how much of it is really in the floodplain and you have to build up, percentage-wise?
The majority of the site is in the floodplain. This is the floodplain overlaying it over here. The majority of the site is in the floodplain.
Is in the floodplain, okay.
Mr. Patterson?
I think it's important to note, when Rich called me, he bought into the idea that he wasn't going to try to take a round peg and put it into a square hole. What he bought into when we spoke about this project is the fact that we plan on having a bunch of community meetings with those folks who are going to be affected by this in that area, take their input, and be able to work with the plan to be able to meet something that the neighborhood, the community, and the town itself can buy into. Okay.
Mr. Patterson?
Yes, could you tell me some of the techniques that you're planning to use for stormwater management?
Typically on a project, multifamily type project like this, we have to comply with DEP stormwater standards. In this high volume area of traffic, this main access, this doesn't serve itself well for pervious pavement. The periphery areas like this area down here, this area here, may be better suited for pervious pavement. The soils in this area are great. To go to the extent and the expense of introducing pervious pavement, I probably wouldn't suggest that at this point. The infiltration that you can gain just from a conventional leach field or basin in this area can certainly achieve the same water quality. We would probably suggest some proprietary water quality devices here. There's a number of them in the, on the market. The maintenance associated with some of these things is expensive, particularly pervious pavement, and the vacuuming of pervious pavement is expensive. We would probably introduce some sort of rainwater garden, if you will. The problem with those is the effectiveness of those. They're pretty. They serve a smaller storm. The maintenance of them is tough. If we were to do that, we would probably do that just as a as an attraction, so to speak. To solely serve a project of this density, where we're trying to develop only one portion of the site, we probably would steer away from that. Part of the LID components that we would use here, we're actually, if you back up at the 30,000 foot level, one of the LID techniques is to develop only a portion of the site. So we're doing that through our proposal. We're only developing this area up here.
Ms. Moffett?
I think this has been discussed in previous years in talking about developing that area. What happens to the rest of the area in the floodplain when you build that much? That much of it has to make a difference to all the rest of that area.
There's a few things that can happen. Anytime you fill or displace floodplain, whether it be on this site or any other site, you're pushing the water someplace else. In this case, what we would look to do is to build above it, and our impacts be mitigated on site itself. So when I spoke earlier about the compensatory areas, the excavations that we would say we fill at elevation 10 to 12, we would look on site for some areas up in here, some areas here and here that we would excavate to mitigate that fill so that we don't push the flood elsewhere.
We should move on to our next group.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, questions for Affirmative Investments in Falmouth Housing Corp.?
Guess their design up there.
You might want to change the
Yeah, okay.
the projection. But I can ask this question regardless of what's up there.
Mr. Patterson.
How did you choose the mix of a bedroom numbers for each of the units?
So the state requires, so the state DHCD, which is where most of our resources are coming from, sets out priorities, and they set out, you actually have to meet one of 4 priorities. And they have a big emphasis on large bedrooms, and so you have to have at least 65% of them as 2 bedrooms, and then 10% as 3. So we met that, but we also added a few more 2 bedrooms. So it's basically what the funding wants as well as what the town needs are.
Ms. Moran?
For your accessible, 100% accessible units, are you going to need to do ramps, or have you already built my understanding from the presentation was that you've sort of seamlessly worked that in. Is that correct?
Our basic, we are filling the area to bring up the grade, and so there is a picture at the end, but we don't need, there'll be slope sidewalks. They don't look like ramps. We don't need handrails or anything to deal with the accessibility as currently envisioned. This is all kind of a working process, but our general idea is to bring up the grade to the elevation 14.
Great.
Ms. Moffett?
Talk to me about how you're arranging the financing.
So on our project, most of it is used, we have a combination of, the major way affordable housing gets built in the state and the country is through the low-income housing tax credit. So we are requesting state and federal low-income housing tax credit. We're also asking for soft money right now in our proposal, and this is all malleable. I mean, this is kind of what we've proposed right now, but it's not an exact science of kind of what they'll give or not, so it's in conversations. So there's state resources. We have proposed CPA money in our current proposal based on the CPA awards that we've received on other Falmouth projects, and we're quite aware that the CPA has put money into this project already by purchasing it. So we have flexibility of asking for more state resources if that's not reasonable, but we're also aware of asking for too much from the state because we would like to have this project go sooner than later. And we also have permanent debt, and then we're deferring a significant amount of our developer fee to put back into the project as well.
Ms. Moran?
And just comparing the 2 projects, so for your stormwater management and flood mitigation, you've already accounted for most of it by building up the topography as opposed to perhaps being required to really build a big pit, throw rocks in, and kind of have the flow.
My guess is we'll be doing a little bit of both, but I can have Joel answer.
Please.
This is about stormwater. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a combination, and Tom had mentioned some of the rain gardens and possible pervious pavement. And then there would be some underground storage that would be incorporated as far as, capturing along some of the parking areas in the roadway, and either leaching it underground right there, and also maybe diverting it to a basin towards the southerly side of that development, where it's already a naturally lower area and a good sandy spot, so it's got great percolation. And that's the intent right now. So trying to filter it first, do the rain gardens things. If we did have to use some kind of engineered device to incorporate, to treat it even further, we'd look into that as well.
So it's a multifaceted approach.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
Often people see the estuaries as being a safety net for the stormwater. What effect is this raising up going to have on that, when the stormwater comes in? People say if you leave it alone, you'd actually have water to be able to disperse so it doesn't go through the rest of the town.
Right, so yeah, this is a natural low area right here, and it all kind of eventually drains back out into Little Pond here. And by filling this, there's going to be treatment along any point where the water is collected. So there will be filtration along the front of the roadway here, and it naturally drops back down into here. So we make sure that it gets filtered to the proper amounts before it got dispersed into, or made its way into that wetland area for sure.
Okay. Other question?
You're showing 2 youth soccer fields there?
Again, that's a
That's just a
potential.
potential.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Patterson?
Yeah, in terms of compensation for fill, in terms of a flood storage area, it occurred to me in actually attending a workshop on the community rating system that really, once the flood comes in as a sheet flow, that you're really talking about a flood storage area that actually extends out into the sound.
Yes.
We're not talking about a riverine area.
Absolutely.
Where you're coming, you got water coming down and it's being constrained by a bridge or a bridge abutment and constricted, and it backs up into the area. You're really talking about flooding coming in from the ocean, and once the ocean goes over Minot Road, the flood volume extends right out into the ocean. Is that the way you see it in this case?
Absolutely. This is not a hydraulically constricted site. Again, just like you said, we're elevation 3 or 4 here on Minot Road at the opening to Little Pond. The still water is up at 11 or 12, coming up into here. So it's well over the road. You've got waves ahead of that. So like I had pointed out at the beginning, this whole area is AE 12, that same zone that we're in. So that small amount of fill right there is not going to increase, the flooding height for any of that zone or these others. And we've looked at it's not going to redirect that flooding onto any of these neighbors that are much higher than us already as well.
Which is a real asset to both developments, choosing that corner.
It is.
Why
It's
you
the
have to
highest
do it
point
that
of the
way.
site. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Any other
That was
questions?
one of the recommended spots picked out by the Cape Cod Commission as well.
Just want to make a couple of comments. One, I want to just express our real appreciation to the 2 firms for coming in and making yourselves available for a public interview. The evaluation committee has already interviewed the teams independently, and I can tell you, I expect that this second interview will be very instructive to them in terms of the areas they're still struggling to make a comparative analysis between the 2 firms, which is what their job is right now. We've worked with a financial consultant that have evaluated both of the financial proposals. You have 2 very strong, very qualified firms that are in the business of doing this work, and I think it will be a very challenging recommendation for the committee, and I just wanted to express our real appreciation to both firms. We know this is tough work. Appreciate you sitting and learning a little bit more about the community of Falmouth this evening, and for your dedication and pursuit of the project, so thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you very much.
And
Thank
thanks
you.
for staying so late.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that.
If there's any way I know for your committee that we could have a recommendation to us before town meeting so we can make a decision, that would be fantastic.
We hear you.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, moving back to our
Number 4?
number 4. Before we do, I do want to know on item 9, discussion on the matter of John Busby retirement allocation. We actually need some more information before we can really move on to that discussion.
Okay.
So I am going to be tabling that till next Monday night. But if anyone's here for the John Busby retirement allocation, we're not going to be having that discussion tonight. We're going to be moving that on to next week. Just let you know now, so you're here for it, you can leave. Discussion on the concept of contract for legal services. So this is an ongoing conversation that we started a while ago. We'll probably be going on for a while, but just wanted to continue our discussion tonight. certainly there are advantages to both options of having a hired town council who is available all the time and is not charging us any extra money for being here now, as opposed to an outside firm. Yes, Ms. Moffett?
Where did the idea come from to have an outside firm?
When Mr. Suso and I were discussing bringing back to the board the reappointment of the current town council, it was something that I thought of. Did it make sense? Because we are doing a lot of outside services. That we have both the times that we need to for labor, get outside counsel, and I asked the question.
Okay.
And in the discussion with Mr. Duffy, asked him if he would give us some insight so that it can come back to this board and we could have a discussion about it.
Okay.
And it's also a common model. I mean, there are really two models, so different towns do different, have different models for council.
And often it can be based on size of municipality as to which one makes the most sense, depending on how often you're going to need a town council or need to get legal advice. Yep.
I just had a couple of instances come up this week. I'm, obviously, everyone knows I'm a lawyer. I've done a lot of supervision of law firms. I was regional counsel for General Electric Capital. I managed a number of firms who did litigations. I'm more than familiar with both models. But in terms of municipal, processes, just this past week, the Farley Bog review is coming up, and Mashpee is not going to be able to have counsel there. We've made arrangements so Falmouth can easily have counsel there. Mashpee doesn't have that luxury at that point. So it's that's just a little vignette about one of the things that I just encountered this week. Another instance, there was a particular question. I was comparing statutes as I was preparing for today's meeting. We get our materials really late Friday, and so there's a lot of material to go through over the weekend. So obviously most, other lawyers don't necessarily work all weekend. I had an opportunity to compare the statute, ask the question. In fact, I can't remember if I just texted the town manager. I had the answer probably by 8:30 in the morning. I mean, it's, so that's just another instance of how, when you have the model where you have an inside town council, those are the advantages. There isn't a long period and wait that you really have to work the rest of the town around to make an estimate of how much it's going to cost to get the answer, how quick it's going to happen, which firm, do you call if there are multiple firms? Do you call is the partner going to then, as they do most of the time, be cost effective, dish it off to one of the lower associates who then does the work, who then gives it back to the partner who makes sure it serves the client's need and it's correct. And then, so there's a lot of hoops that go through in the model of outside legal services. Also, I mean, this concept of, contract, there are some firms do every aspect of municipal law, other firms do just labor law, additional firms. In the case of the turbine litigation that we've been dealing with most recently, there are firms that just do appellate work. There are, in my case, I've managed all of those levels. That's pretty unique. I've been to the Supreme Court twice. I've been to appellate court. I've been to federal courts, state courts. Most firms don't do that broad aspect of practice. So those are the things that we're pondering. I think it's something that's really crucial to look at pretty frequently, because you have to know what the town's needs are, and it's part of the fiscal responsibility for the board to figure out where the money is best spent, including with the legal budget. So I think this is a hugely important discussion, but I just thought it would be important to just mention a couple of vignettes just happened this week.
Anyone else? Ms. Flynn?
Well, I would say, since I've worked in both situations, where when I worked for the town of Plymouth, the legal counsel was contracted by general counsel and labor counsel. We didn't have, and of course, I've been here for however many years with in-house counsel. And I think the major difference for me as being one who had to utilize counsel as a resource in making decisions was the lead up to getting the decision. When outside counsel, you had to tell the long story. I mean, it was a long lead up in terms of providing the information so counsel could make the appropriate decision. That sometimes had to be in writing, and sometimes it could be on the phone. But when you have an in-house counsel, oftentimes the issues, the counsel is so familiar with the community that you don't have that long lead up in terms of either explaining what the situation is or having to write a document that lists all of the issues. So I think there's a huge factor there for the people in the town who actually utilize town council a lot. It can make a big difference when the council is right here.
Mr. Patterson?
Yeah, and I would just second both of these positions. I think it really is in the town's best interest to have its own town council for, for a significant portion of the legal affairs that we have to manage. And I think one of the ones that really comes out to me is if you have your own town council, they know the town, they know the bylaws, they know all the permitting processes, and they know the people. And that's a big part of it as well. If they already have that homework already done because of the experience in the town, then they draw from it immediately, and you're not trying to essentially write a specification and worrying about leaving out some critical detail, or worrying about the fact that whoever it is in that contracted law firm doesn't really do all the homework they need to do to give you the right advice. So I think we're well served by having our own town council, and I think the fact that we've had to add a second town council says that the workload is not declining. It has been growing, and we've grown appropriately, and I think it really is the right investment to make on behalf of the town. It's the most efficient way to get our legal services provided to us. When we need the additional legal services, we can contract them out because of the specialties of the firm that we're actually contracting. We know what they can do. They're specialized in it. They're efficient at it. They're going to anticipate the questions that we can't because it's a little out of the ordinary.
I find it also allows our departments to be a little more proactive than reactive, that we get the answers beforehand as opposed to making a mistake legally and getting a reaction afterwards. Okay. If there are no other comments, we'll move on to our appointments. Next item is to interview for committees. We have the Zoning Board of Appeals. We have an alternate member available, term ending June 30th, 2019, and we have one applicant, Jerry Patanis. If you could introduce yourself, let us know who you are, where you come from, if we've ever seen you before.
I plead the fifth, Jerry Patanis. I live in 13 Amherst Ave, Precinct 2. I was most recently town wastewater superintendent for the past 7 years. Before that, I had a combination of regulatory experience with EPA and a certain amount of regulatory experience with the Army. And I think my natural background is more on a regulatory board, despite you've probably seen my emotions, because I'm an emotional person, but I don't think you make decisions based on emotion. I think once you become emotional, you become irrational. And of all the boards, I think this board does a good job of keeping people at bay or members at bay. All the other committees don't. The ZBA does a very good job of running a meeting the way it's supposed to. You have a brief outline of my experience. It's difficult to put 35 to 40 years into 4 sentences. And you're right, I cherry-picked things that I thought would show a side of me that you wouldn't believe. But I was asked to be the EEO director for EPA Region 1. How I got there was a strange story. Every year they'd say, we're going to bring your daughter to school. Every year I'd say, why not you say, bring your children to school and highlight them? The second year I complained about that, the EO director said, go back in your cave. Third year, I think they changed it. So I think I have a lot broader perspective on looking at these things than the past 7 years. But past 7 years has given me tremendous opportunity to understand the town, understand the shadow government in the town. I don't mean that to be disrespectful, but you have to understand all governments run on a certain shadow government that's not secret. Select people need to have advisors, people they can trust within town. I'm not going to get myself in deep hot water, but I just read a book, the first President, George Washington, how he assumed 12 different power positions that were not in the Constitution. He just went out and did it. He did it by selling it to what I would say is the shadow government of the time, and they created all sorts of things like executive powers that are not in the Constitution, and the right to do a lot of other things. And that intrigues me. I'm not practiced at it, and I think I'd enjoy being on the board.
Questions?
Well, my question was going to be, what is your staying power for long meetings? But you're still here, so I don't have to ask that.
That's a water quality meeting, yeah. Well, they adjourn at 9.
They do. How do you fall on intent versus letter of the law?
Well, you have to be able to come up with what intent means. The federal government, you have the congressional history, you have a preamble to regulations, and you have a way of knowing what the intent is. At the local level, I think you basically have what's in front of you, because town meeting doesn't give you much of a history. I think you have to be somewhat flexible, but it's a regulatory board, so if you can't find the second best interpretation, you're going to be sued. Now, the idea is to get something through that no one wants to sue you on either side, and that's the idea of trying to make a compromise on what fits the town. The board here has 3 spheres, the way I analyze it. You have fiduciary responsibility, you have a legal responsibility that can go back into fiduciary, and you have a social responsibility. The ZBA has more of a regulatory responsibility with some social responsibility, if you can ever define what the, I forget what the word is, community character. I've been asking people what our community character is for years, and I've concluded it depends what precinct you're in, or what village you're in, what county you're looking at, and I think you have to make all those things, but I think you have to do it within the 4 boundaries of what the regulations say, or you think they say, and discuss it up and try to avoid yourself from emotion.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ready to take action?
Sure. I move we appoint Gerald Patamas to the Zoning Board of Appeals, alternate member with a term expiring June 30th of 2019.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Welcome back to some meetings. For the Affirmative Action Committee, we actually have 2 vacancies. One term ending June 30th, 2016, and one ending June 30th, 2017. We have 1 applicant, Joanne Treisman. Introduce yourself and explain why you'd like to be on this board.
Hi, Joanne Treisman, 1 Triumph Street, Falmouth, Precinct 2. I also have staying power. A long story or a short story, I can't tell which is best. Affirmative action, I grew up, started working in the 60s after Kennedy had started the affirmative action, looking at historically underrepresented people. I worked as a teacher up on the Canadian border in a culturally deprived area, really aware of how people live, different people live. I had the fortune of living in Switzerland, where I did not speak the language, and found myself acting like a second grader trying to get something. Again, getting the sense of people who can't communicate, who are in a new culture, how they get along. I've been on many boards. One of the boards I served here in Falmouth. We were summer residents. My husband was a scientist at the MBL for like 45 years. And I served on the Children's School Science Board as the person who hired teachers. So again, had that information about how hiring happens. I was at Framingham State, and we had courses on affirmative action, sexual harassment. So I have that background. Served on, let's see, what other boards? Locally, I was on the Carousel of Light Board. I was the clerk, so I know what requirements are. I'm currently working for the Falmouth Once a Y volunteer group in town, and our hope would be to do something for everybody in this community. And again, that's kind of been my history of things I want to do. I'm one of those people who say, let's find ways to have multi-use programs so that everyone can be included. Any particular questions you want to ask me?
Any questions?
I do show up when that's one of the things I wrote down. I'm reliable. If I say I'm coming, I go. And
Do you know anyone that's currently on the board?
I do.
Okay.
Scuba and Lionel, Pam, and we have is it her name Donna? The person who's the half-time Human Services and affirmative action. I went to the last meeting, although I wasn't.
Denise.
Denise, D-word. Okay.
Any questions from the board? No? Okay.
I'm going to
Action.
make a motion for appointment for the term ending June 30th, 2017, my gosh, for the Affirmative Action Committee.
Second him.
Okay. A motion and a second to appoint Joanne Treisman to the June 30th, 2017 Affirmative Action Committee. Ms.
One
Moffett?
question. Joanne, have you agreed to the 2017?
Yes, I
Okay.
agreed in 2017.
Okay.
Otherwise, it'd be 2 months.
Otherwise, yeah, right.
She said
All right, thank
All
you
those
very
in favor
much.
say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
None. The ayes have it.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Affordable Housing Committee has 2 vacancies, one term ending June 30th, 2017, and one term ending June 30th, 2018. Both applicants we have heard before, but are asking to join other committees. First is Pamela Harting-Barat. Pamela, welcome back. The 2 committees you're on is not enough?
As I said before, as soon as I can find a volunteer anonymous group, I'm going to sign up for it.
Those interviews are next week.
As long as it doesn't conflict with any of these meetings.
Right.
Pam Harding Barrett, I live at 74 Rockledge, Precinct 5. And the affordable housing, interestingly, at the last meeting of the Human Services Committee, much of our discussion was about housing. And I don't want to get too psychological, but, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, one of them is clearly shelter. And when we have a population in town that is clearly underserved, it would be wonderful to be able to provide for them the medical services they need, the mental health services they need. But if they don't have shelter, they can't get any of the other ancillary services. So when I served on the Board of Selectmen in another community, we were very intimately involved with affordable housing because that was a priority of the town, as it is in many towns, to try to reach that 10%, not just so we wouldn't have to deal with 40Bs, but because it was the right thing to do. And I feel the same way here, and I think actually the needs are far greater than it is in the community that I came from. So.
What do you think of this project?
I'm sorry?
What do you think of the project we heard tonight?
Well, I thought it was kind of interesting because they talked about the wetlands, but if you do anything with a wetland, you have to duplicate it. That's a state, a little bit of EPA stuff, but.
They were staying away from the wetlands. I think we're okay with that.
I mean, I thought they were both. I thought they were both interesting. I liked the fact that they had family housing, that there was a community center, that there was a playground for children, and I liked the fact that they were volunteering some land for the community. If it's your priority, if it's a town's priority for soccer fields, that's great. If it is not a priority, because you don't have an enormous school-age population, then I think the town would probably come up with some other wonderful use for that property.
Other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is Mark Cool.
In the spirit of expediency, since we're running along
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Cool, 250 Fire Tower Road, Precinct 6. Currently a zoning board member. Term expires in June. Time to turn in my interpretive hat for a more creative hat. And so I want to stay involved with the community and the town. And so I attended I've read and I attended the workshop dealing with housing demand study and needs analysis. And the big takeaway for me was in the executive summary, and you can read that, and I won't bore you. But Pam hit on fairness issues. I'm thinking it more from a standpoint of economic development. And I think that was pretty rigorously exposed, that without the satisfying housing environment that treats the young and the low to moderate income families and persons, you're going to see a loss of economic diversity and economic development in town. And that's scary for me, because I plan on being here for a long time. So what do I bring to the board? 3 years of familiarity with some hurdles that need to be addressed. I think the planning board has started in the right direction by their draft of the accessory apartment bylaw. I think they're getting good feedback from zoning board as one, but they've asked for input not only from the public but from other town boards and committees, and I think that's very important to work as a team, because it's going to take a innovative creativity to bring everybody together to get them on the same team so we can deal with this major problem in town. 35 years of air traffic experience. I would say that works to my benefit with regard to creative problem solving. And so I'll leave it at that, because this will take creativity. So I'm open for any questions.
Any questions? Ms. Grant?
Sure. In the little vignette here, you were talking about you say the motivating takeaway from the executive summary of the housing analysis was that there really needs to be some consensus building, is really, I think that, what you were getting at very nicely here. What are your ideas on that?
Well, as I mentioned, I think one of the impediments right now, my experience has been, you have regulatory restrictions. The town of Falmouth has been dominated by the attitude of single-family homes on single-family lots. And to achieve the direction that this needs analysis is sending us, I think that needs to be addressed. And so it has to take the community. I mean, it's going to take, like I said, teamwork and a lot of creativity. But I think the changes have to start with bringing things to town meeting so as to change bylaws. So it'll be easier for the zoning board to sit there and make determinations, but have the support of the community. And so you have to get the community on board with this. I mean, the iron's in the fire. And so you have to strike while it's hot. And so I think that's what is necessary, number one. And so it's all a team effort trying to, because the zoning board can only do what the bylaws say. And the bylaws are adopted, and it's the town meeting's vision and voice and through the bylaws. And so until those start changing in an adequate direction so as to address what that study said. So that's what I see being the difficulty.
Thank you.
Any questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark.
So we have 2 vacancies, one term ending in 2017, one ending in 2018. Mr. Patterson.
I move that we appoint Mark Kuhl to the Affordable Housing Committee for a term ending June 30th of 2018.
Second?
Motion and a second to approve Mark Kuhl to the term ending June 30th, 2018. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Want me to keep going?
Sure.
I move that we appoint Pamela Harding Barrett to the Affordable Housing Committee for the term expiring June 30th of 2017.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? We have 2 new, so you're gonna have a quorum almost all the time now.
Thank you very
Excellent.
much.
Right.
Next committee, we have 2 vacancies on the Cable Advisory Committee. One term ending June 30th, 2016, and one ending June 30th, 2018. And we have one applicant, Ernest Hyde. Mr. Hyde.
Good evening.
We're talking about the cable advisory.
Right.
As I mentioned in my form, I have spent 13 years with a nonprofit cable provider.
Right, I'm actually going to interrupt. Mr. Hyde's also applying to the Substance Abuse Commission. And so we can consider both, if I've just announced he's applying for both. So, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No problem. So, at any rate, I was the founding director for Westford Cat in the central part of the state, north central, some 13, 14 years ago. And spent much of that time producing a show called Legalese, which is now being run in Falmouth, by the way. Not with me, but with my predecessor. So I have a great deal of experience with the cable permitting process, at least from the provider's point of view and dealing with the cable companies. So that's an area that interests me. I've been in Falmouth since September of 2015. I owned a place down here since 2008, I think it is. So I'm interested in that. But in the alternative, or at the same time, I'm interested in the substance abuse committee. I served as the primary and exclusive attorney for the drug court in the Edges District Court for another 13 years, overlapping, of course. So I have dealt in the area of substance abuse for quite some time. And I feel as though I could add a bit to that committee if given the opportunity. So in addition to that, it may sound rather presumptuous to be looking at 2 different committees, but I served on 2 committees in 2 different towns, one where my law practice was and one where I lived at the same time. So I'm able to attend meetings to do that. But I'll leave that choice up to you.
Any questions? Ms. Moffett?
I'm assuming you have checked that these two committee meetings are not in the same evening.
I have not.
I don't think they are.
I don't think they are,
Same time,
no.
either.
I think you're okay.
Mr. Patterson, you have a question?
Yes, I don't know whether you are aware of the fact that Comcast, our cable provider, is seeking relief from the regulations because they claim that the competition is so great now, they don't have to be. So we're going to be
The
looking at,
competition where?
well, that there's competition from satellite, from Verizon for internet services and other kinds of broadband services. Anyway, it's coming down. We're getting copies of their application to the Department of Transportation, Telecommunications at the state level. At any rate, I guess I'm going to ask the question, what do you think are the significant challenges that we have in Falmouth in maintaining and adding services that we currently have through our cable?
I think one of the challenges that you have is to get Verizon to come in here with FiOS, number one. I've never had FiOS, so I'm not speaking as a past customer. I'm only speaking from a competitive point of view. In Westford, when we lived in Westford, we had the choice of either. And you had pros on both sides, but I'll be perfectly honest with you, people who had FiOS were happier. So I think from that point of view, competition is a good thing.
Any questions?
Well, I learned recently that, well, I knew that there's more than one community television group on the Cape, and Falmouth Community Television is just one of them. You know, there are other community television groups.
There's one in every town, as far as I know.
Well, not quite, but some of them are working more together, you know, to try to do some regional programming.
Right, yeah.
And I think sometimes it's difficult to find people who are really interested in being on a cable advisory committee. So I think your experience is really relevant to what the needs are for our group here. We have a really great group over there.
I know, I've met them.
Have you met them?
I'm a member.
Oh, you are a member? Oh, so you already know. Oh, that's good. Okay.
Good.
I don't have any questions.
Any questions? Okay.
Can I ask,
Mr. Patterson?
well, are we dealing with the Cable Advisory Committee first?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, well, then I won't ask any more questions in that regard.
Okay.
Well,
Make a motion?
sure. I move that we appoint Ernest Hyde to the Cable Advisory Committee for the term ending June 30th of 2018.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? And, or?
And the Substance Abuse Committee, I was just wanted to get your take on the latest bill that the state legislature and governor have just enacted
On the opioid.
on the opioid crisis.
My view on addiction, is that the governor, I think, has been the proponent of that, and I wish that the Commonwealth would follow up with funds more than $250,000. Because frankly, $250,000 doesn't do a whole lot of good in the Commonwealth, given what we have going in the Commonwealth. It's a beginning, and it's something that the Commonwealth hasn't had up until now. Most of the funding that we've seen in Massachusetts has come from the DOJ and other agencies that issue grants. So $250,000 is a good start, but it's only a start.
And where would you invest that $250,000 to try to help us begin to mitigate this very large problem.
And that's the biggest part of the problem. It's a very large problem. Certainly in treatment, but again, 250,000 in treatment's not going to go an awful long way. The other thing that I am a proponent of is investing it in supporting drug courts around the state, which, by the way, are not supported by anything but grants. So when their grants run out, they run out. But the unfortunate part of a drug court is that you have to be in criminal trouble before you get the assistance of drug court, which is treatment. It's, as my favorite judge used to say, coerced treatment, but it's treatment. But until you get into some criminal trouble, you don't get that treatment. And to find it elsewhere, if you have insurance companies that will pay for a part of that treatment, that's great, but they only pay for a very limited amount of treatment. And once that ends, the person who is truly an addict is still an addict. And so, yeah, $250,000, I'm not overly impressed with it. I'm impressed with the move, but I'm not impressed with the amount.
Any questions?
I'm going to make a motion to appoint Ernest Hyde to the Substance Abuse Commission for the term ending June 30th, 2018.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for volunteering. Next item is to create the position of Water Operator 1, Grade 8, and Wastewater Operator 1, Grade 8. And this is something that's on our, just a procedural step we have to take before it can be approved at town meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Thank you. Again, we're postponing the discussion on the John Busby retirement allocation until I get some more information for next week. Next, we have the seasonal license renewals. I'd like to do them in bulk. Beforehand, I wanted to disclose that my son was employed at Landfall Restaurant this past summer. He's still in Chile, so I have no idea what he's doing this summer. So I can't attest that he's going to be affected there, but I did just want to disclose that. Please make sure that you hold any ones that we need to, and I know that we will be holding the entertainment and Sunday entertainment license for the Silver Shore Shanty. So the rest I'd like to at least read through and approve unless there are questions on any. We have the All Alcoholic Restaurant, Falmouth Raw Bar, Landfall Restaurant, and Silver Shore Shanty.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. All Alcoholic Clubs, the Falmouth Yacht Club and the Seacoast Shores.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. We have the common victual license, Cape Cod Burgers and Fries, Falmouth Raw Bar, Falmouth Yacht Club, Landfall Restaurant, Seacoast Shores, Shuckers, Silver Shore Shanty, and the Tea Room.
Move approval.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The ayes have it. Entertainment, we have the Falmouth Raw Bar, the Falmouth Yacht Club, Landfall Restaurant, Seacoast Shores, Shuckers, and we're going to hold Silver Shore Shanty.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The ayes have it. Sunday entertainment, Falmouth Raw Bar, Falmouth Yacht Club, Landfall Restaurant, Seacoast Shores, Shuckers, and we'll hold Silver Shore Shanty. All those in favor say aye.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. And we have amusement devices, Tea Room.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The ayes have it. So now we have the entertainment and Sunday entertainment license for the Silver Shore Shanty. For the applicant, we have heard quite a bit of information about this in emails and in letters. And just to be clear, the application is for Saturday and Sunday from 4 to 7 for amplified music, is that correct?
That's correct.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Kevin Clower. I'm an attorney with Ahmed Law Firm here in Falmouth, and I represent the Silver Shore Shanty. I'm here tonight with Bobby Flynn and Ted Murphy. And in full disclosure, I'm battling a bit of a something or other, so if I start sweating profusely or coughing, please don't mind me. We're here tonight because the Silver Shore Shanty is applying to renew their entertainment license for Saturdays and Sundays from 4 to 7. The Shanty is a small, family-oriented restaurant located at 465 Grand Avenue. It's across from Falmouth Harbor and McDougal's, and this is their 4th season operating. The site has been home to various restaurants over the years and is zoned B3. This type of restaurant is a by right use in the district. The restaurant employs 20 to 25 people per summer, and it's mostly high school and college age students that work there. It is truly a family-run restaurant. Bobby has 4 members of his family who work there. As I mentioned, we're renewing the entertainment license for amplified music for Saturdays and Sundays from 4 to 7. The family-friendly music series is what the weekend music has been dubbed, and this is its 3rd year of operation. It's become a pretty integral part of their business. And it's really important to note that this music is not a performance. It's meant to be an accompaniment. It's meant to be part of the ambiance of the restaurant. And it's certainly not a nightclub. It's certainly not a concert hall. This is generally one person playing a guitar plugged into a very small amp, providing background music for the diners on the patio. You have letters from some few neighbors who are opposed to this entertainment license. I'm sure that many of these neighbors will speak this evening. But it's important to put this in context because I think you've received 9 letters of opposition. We provided you a petition signed by 502 people. And of those 502 people, 280 identified themselves as year-round residents. Another 107 identified themselves as summer residents. And by looking at the public records and the petition, I was able to identify 43 who live within the Falmouth Heights and Mara Vista districts. These are people who want the music to continue, who believe in what the shanty's doing, and think it's a good thing for the town and for the area. So I think it's important not to be overly swayed by some few butters who do take issue with this. Going back to the petition, 2 of the signers were actually the immediate abutters to the rear of the property, who were, again, in favor of this. Based on comments from last year's hearing, the owners undertook considerable efforts to ensure that the music would be reasonably volumed, so to try to eliminate any issues with the neighbors. Mr. Flynn went so far as to taking decibel readings in 3 different locations, every hour that the music was playing. He took them on the patio where the music was, took them across the street in front of the condominium building located at 4 Deacons Avenue, and took them at the rear of that same building. Baseline readings for the patio, just conversation, dining, street noise, no music, was about 75 decibels, give or take. The average patio reading with the music was 79.85. The average decibel reading in front of 4 Deacons with the music playing was 71, and the average decibel reading on the harbor side was 59. Obviously, we can't specify exactly where the decibels come from at any given time because there's ambient noise, there's traffic, there's all these other factors that come into play. But that gives you some idea there. Now, for context, a nearby lawnmower running one day was 85 decibels. A motorcycle driving down Grand Avenue was 105 decibels. and general traffic on Grand Avenue was measured at up to 85 decibels. The noise level, with or without the music, was remarkably consistent. 75 decibels without music, 79 decibels with music. This is certainly not intrusive, especially in context of the area. This is a busy street located on Falmouth Harbor, right next to McDougal's Marina. This is a busy area. It really is. In reviewing the licenses for both the shanty and for other businesses that have entertainment license, I was struck by the fact that this is one of the most restrictive licenses that this town has issued. This allows for 6 hours of music per week. We're not asking for more. Please don't take this to mean that we are. I'm just pointing out that none are for a shorter amount of time. In fact, the only license that was even relatively close was for 8 hours of music in one day. Mr. Flynn has done exactly the things you asked of him. He sought to work with the neighbors to address concerns. We're aware of one noise complaint to the Falmouth Police Department, which that officer determined was unfounded. There were no other formal complaints filed to our knowledge. As I mentioned, you will hear from some of the neighbors opposed to this, but there are far many more neighbors who are in favor of it. In fact, I do have with me some additional letters of support which weren't able to be mailed to you ahead of time. And these are from Mr. Barry Bogosian, who lives at 11 Melrose, Frank and Joanne DiPilato of 9 Crescent Avenue, and a letter signed by Don Lavoisier, the co-director of the T-Ticket Summer Camp, which is accompanied by a petition signed by 36 people involved in the T-Ticket School.
I'll take it. Thank you.
This is what the town should be encouraging. It really is. Small business, providing jobs to local residents, hiring local musicians, and offering a family-friendly environment. It's places and things like this that make Falmouth special, allowing families to make wonderful memories. It's things like this that keep people coming back to the town of Falmouth and that we should be seeking to preserve and encourage. We'd ask that you allow the shanty to continue the music from 4 to 7 on Saturdays and Sundays. I, along with Mr. Flynn, would be glad to address whatever questions the board may have. Thank you. Oh, and just so you're aware, we did prepare some photographs, and this is just photos that were taken at the shanty over the course of the last summer, and I think really emphasizes the family-friendly nature of it and the family orientation of it. The center photo here is a photo of all the employees, and as you'll see, it is mostly high school and college-age kids who live here in the town of Falmouth who are employed here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Questions from the board to the applicant? Ms. Swafford?
Well, I wrote down a few things. I want to make sure I have this right. It's from 4 to 7 on Friday night? No.
Saturdays and Sundays.
It's on Saturday and Sunday from 4 to 7?
Correct.
Are there church services at that time? I mean, I'm just saying, are people complaining on Saturday night?
I don't know that we've had any issue with the church service. I'm not sure that there's been any issue of overlap with the church service.
I just want to say, in thinking about when I lived on Worcester Court, Jericho Path and Worcester Court, I could listen to the band over at the band shell on Thursday nights. And I was that far away from the harbor to Worcester Court and never gave a thought to the fact that it was town music. The other thing that I think about the shanty is it has had so many different owners over a period of time. There's stability there now. And that people are aware that if they're there this summer and they come back next summer, it's going to still be there. My personal feeling about it is I do not see that it's an issue because it's zoned for a restaurant and it has its entertainment and it's 3 hours on a Saturday and Sunday night. Maybe it's the kind of music. I don't know that. But I would say that anyone who lives anywhere near the Heights, there's something that is going to disrupt the quietness that you get every now and then. So I don't see that it's an issue.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Well, I guess that was a statement, wasn't it?
There was a question.
But you kind of,
a front-loaded question.
You did answer something
I
there.
did.
Thank you.
4 to 7 on Saturday and Sunday.
Okay, is there anyone who'd like to speak on behalf of this application?
Hi, my name's Luke Vos. I live in Woods Hole. I'm a professional musician. Usually not up this late on a Monday night, though.
Neither are we.
I play at the Shanty about once a month the last few years, and I play a wide range of places with a full band in nightclubs, bars, which this is definitely not that. This is a different scene. It's nice to play for an all-ages group. There's a lot of people I play for who say, I don't get to see you out at 11 o'clock at night at the Landfall or Grumpy somewhere else, so it's just a nice environment to be in. Bobby takes it really seriously. You see him checking this out levels across the street. And you talked about a blue economy. There's also a cultural economy I think that isn't tapped in Falmouth. There's tons of great musicians, and I think that's a draw for people. When I travel, if I go to a bar or a little restaurant and there's someone with a guitar, I want to go back there. I think it gives you a little flavor of each community you go to when you see live music, and I think it's a perfect spot, and I'd like to see more of it.
So I have a question that I could ask you as the musician. I'll ask some of the people that live near. What would it do to your music if it weren't amplified?
It has to be, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know how to describe it other than it just, there's certain ways of delivering something that you want to speak softly and still be heard, to have that tone. And you want to pluck your guitar softly and still be heard without having to wail on it, you know. Like Frank Sinatra couldn't croon without being close to a microphone, you know. Amplification is just part of the music, you know.
Okay.
Mr. Jones, can I address that?
No, I actually was deliberately not asking the applicant that question. I wanted to ask the musicians and the people who live near, because it was quite deliberate that way. Yep. Okay.
I'm Pat Keon. I'm from Precinct 1. I'm a former Falmouth teacher. I find going to the shanty is one of my most favorite things of the summer. And one of the reasons is because of the music. I have a deaf ear. My other ear is very, very sensitive, and I can't go places where there's loud music. And I love music. To have a place that, and I'm also getting old and I need to go to bed earlier than usual, so I don't stay out late. So to have this place on a weekend to go to, that I can afford the food, I meet people I know, I watch the kids dancing to the music. It's just very special to me, and I just hope you will think about the value to our community that I think about that makes me want to go there. And for what Luke was saying, I wouldn't be able to hear the music if it wasn't amplified because of people talking. So I can hear it and enjoy it. I can still have a quiet conversation, but just as someone listening to the music, not amplified. Thank you.
Yep.
I'm Brian Bristol Donnellan, 70 Minot Road at the end of Mara Vista. I've lived down there for 10 years. I've been a summer resident all my life. It is wonderful to finally speak up as a member of the Falmouth Heights Mara Vista Improvement Association in favor of something. We often find ourselves speaking out against things we don't like, things we want to stop happening in Falmouth Heights. Well, this is something I want to continue. It's wonderful, you know, a couple of hours of music at a reasonable volume happening on a Friday and Saturday night, ending at what, 7 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock at night? My God, you know, this is the first time I've had the opportunity to speak up about something positive as part of this organization that I'm proud to be a member of. So yeah, let's do this. Let's speak in favor of it. Let's make this happen. And he's not doing what other establishments are doing in that neighborhood, which is let's apply for a license to have a little bit of entertainment, and then at 10 o'clock at night, and then next year 11 o'clock at night, and then next year 12 o'clock, and then next year 1 o'clock. He's not doing that. He's maintaining it year after year after year. He's not gaming the system. He's maintaining it. Let him do this. Okay? This is great. This is what we want our people to do in our neighborhood to maintain a great system.
Thank you.
Let this happen.
Thank you.
Anyone else on behalf of the, Melissa?
Melissa Keefe, Precinct 4. I wrote down a few things because I knew it would be late, and I wanted to make sure I hit on some key things. I think family friendly has definitely been mentioned. Pretty sure my kids are in those pictures, a few of them anyway. My parents wanted to relay their thoughts. They went to bed hours ago as well. My mother specifically said a positive environment where grandparents and multi-generations can take their grandkids, and it's not fresh or inappropriate or something that would make anyone feel awkward or uncomfortable. And quite honestly, if I think that my parents and my children's ears can handle it, I'm pretty sure that other people can as well. Again, I just want to reference the 4 to 7 on Saturdays and Sundays. I also want to speak for the sort of the at-risk, the late teen to 20-ish age. It's the only place that people can go that are under 21 that they can enjoy food and live music. Live music seems to be a dying art. I think the Heights is a watered-down skeleton of what it once was. That's neither here nor there, but what has been watered down is the community, sense of community when you go and listen to live music. Everyone is doing this, myself included. I'm attached to my phone constantly, but when you go and you listen to live music, you're not only interacting with the musician, but you're interacting with people around you. You're interacting with, the people that you're with, or if you're by yourself. I have a few quotes from my children, from the 7-year-old. 100,000, 1.5 million, and 1 million more is how much I love the shanty. And my son, who says, "It's my favorite place to go. I wish it was open all year. We love making new friends, and we listen to the music and we dance." They're 6 and 7. They're not, adults. Anyway, there was a time in the Heights that you couldn't throw a stick without hearing live entertainment. And again, I just want to remind everyone that involves people interaction. I'm sure people are going to be upset with it, but you knew this about the Heights. You lived there. So anyway, I can't support it enough. I also went to high school with Ted. I am proud to say that I went away to college, moved back intentionally, and intentionally chose to raise our family here. So we love it, we support it, and we hope that you do as well. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Chris Shea, 3 Narragansett Street, and I've been here since 7 o'clock, so I was not leaving without speaking. A couple things to say, and it's probably going to hit the nail on the head a couple more times, but Bob, I think it was 4 years when he started this. He started this to make work for his son and daughter, and then his wife came aboard, and as the maitre d', Bob was the basically the clerk of the works, bartender, and Matt was the cook, the son, and Bridget was a waitstaff. And as the years went by, kids in the neighborhood who were 20, 21, 22, they came and they joined this workforce. And it was and is a very special place because you have, an ice cream shop, a bicycle shop, a restaurant, a little bar, and every year the Flynn's have done something to improve this spot. A couple of years ago, they added a handicap bathroom. Last year, they added a space outside for a waiting room with a fire pit, and they run a tight ship. And I'm not an infrequent visitor down there, and I've got to say, I have never seen a scintilla of any problem, any loudness, any distrust, and I think it's a place that should be praised and not debased. So, that's it.
Anything else?
Yeah.
Lisa Gauthier, Precinct 6, and I work at T-Ticket School and the T-Ticket Summer Camp along with Dawn.
Dawn Lavoisier, Precinct 3. We're here in support. We bring our summer camp to the shanty. We bring our families. The staff members from T-Ticket School all signed a letter. We had our staff last day celebration at the shanty last year. And what's great about it is that it's a place that we can make memories with our family. There aren't a lot of places that I can bring my 19-year-old, she can bring her 7-year-old, and all our friends can bring the kids all in between. And they all look forward to it, the singing and the dancing and the great food.
Yes. My 7-year-old, well, no, now he's 8, sorry. He loves music, he loves dancing. The 2-year-old, really can't bring him anywhere, but I can bring him here. I'm not worried who's looking at me because he's screaming, because he's listening to the music, he loves it. My son can't wait to work for you, Mom and Dad. He's like, where are you going? I'm like, I'm here to sing music, it's a shanty. He's like, can I come? I'm like, no. But we look forward to it every summer. We're counting down the days till you open. It's just a great family restaurant. It's comfortable. We love it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Would anyone like to speak in opposition to the application? Mr. Grosser?
Good evening, I'm Howard Grosser. I live on Grand Avenue. I'm president of the Falmouth Heights Mara Vista Neighborhood Association. Our neighborhood is proud to host, and the FHMNA fully supports a number of fun, family-friendly activities, like the Polar Plunge that we just had yesterday, the Flag Day 5K, the Falmouth Fireworks, the Falmouth Road Race, the British Beer Company's Lennon Fest. We have open lines of communication with and have great business neighbors, like the Island Queen, McDougal's Boat Yard, and the Falmouth Yacht Club, just to name a few. Our neighborhood association's bylaws include a 4-point mission statement, and the relevant point as far as this application is concerned is that we support and promote activities which are consistent with the peaceful enjoyment of a residential neighborhood. This application and this proposed activity does not now and has not in the past been remotely consistent with that goal. We were not in attendance to ask you to deny this application 2 years ago when it was proposed by the current tenant at this location. The posted agenda item 2 years ago read review and approve seasonal licenses, and with nothing specific to this location and nothing posted about the outdoor amplified music, I think a communication issue perhaps prevented a meaningful review at that time. Still, there was a reasonable expectation that this board, our licensing authority, would have had our backs, so to speak, and rejected it without anyone even having to make the case. As far as I know, it's been the long-standing policy of Falmouth's licensing authority to require that establishments providing entertainment confine the sound to the inside of that establishment. For 40 years or more, this requirement has been a condition of liquor licenses. Keeping sound indoors generally requires a vestibule entry and closing doors and windows during performances. And I believe that Pat Flynn was on the board not long ago that required this of the Anchor Ale House, who remodeled their building in order to receive approval to provide entertainment. In fact, last year, 1 week after approving the same license we're talking about tonight, this very board not only required that the Landfall Restaurant keep their entertainment indoors, you actually specified the means and methods by which they were to do so. As a condition of their license, you required that they install door closers on their entertainment doors. The Anchor Ale House and the Landfall combined don't even come close to abutting the number of residential properties as does this applicant. Last year, when you permitted this applicant's entertainment to continue being both outdoors and amplified, there was the mistaken notion that because the application was approved the prior year, that it couldn't be denied unless there were police reports. And while perhaps true for a liquor license, we discovered later that there's no such requirement for an entertainment license, which is granted or not at your discretion. And I'm here representing the clear majority opinion of the FHMNA members and the Board of Directors and asking you for some of that discretion tonight. It's useful to examine how and ask why this applicant broadcasts his amplified music. The entertainment area measures 22 by 36, and by way of comparison, it's smaller than the room that we're in right now. I'm speaking to you now without amplification, and please tell me if you can't hear me, or if I'm being too loud. The applicant not only projects his music with a large amplifier, he mounts that amp high up on a tripod. He could position it along the sidewalk and aim it towards the building, but he doesn't. He places it against the building and aims it out towards the street. Maybe you visited the location. If not, you can find pictures of everything I just described on the applicant's Facebook page. There is, however, something that you'll no longer find on that Facebook page. You won't find the applicant's August 2015 post, #harassment, the net result of which was that his followers identified and threatened one of my neighbors. The applicant's post and the associated vulgar and threatening comments were online for about a month, and subsequent to receiving a registered letter from that neighbor's attorney, the applicant wisely chose to remove the post and the comments. For full disclosure, he admitted no wrongdoing, and also for full disclosure, the intimidation of this neighbor was well known by the other abutters, and it's the primary reason that you may only have one police report about excessive noise. This applicant is the current tenant at a location that for 50 years was an ice cream shop, a pizza stand, a fried clam shop. There used to be no parking issues. There used to be no noise issues. And there's no argument that this grandfathered B3 spot zone location allows for business use. But I suggest not every business use or every business plan. When the current tenant vacates, the location is entirely appropriate for many businesses. We know it already works well for an ice cream shop or pizza shop. Beauty salon, insurance office, real estate office, antique store all fit in well there. And similar to other locations in town, this location is entirely inappropriate for a shooting range, a Dunkin' Donuts drive-through, a 40B project, a multi-room hotel, and based upon the sheer number of non-patrons who by this license would be forced to listen to it, this location is also entirely inappropriate for outdoor amplified music. Doesn't matter how many people signed a petition or how many people here tonight support outside amplified music in someone else's neighborhood. Like me, they certainly have the right to speak. They can support his right to apply. They cannot, however, support his right to provide outdoor amplified music because there is no such right. No, he has the right to ask. This board has the right to deny. And the abutters most definitely have the greatest right of all, and that is the right to not be forced to hear the amplified version of what the applicant chooses as entertainment. Falmouth has a noise bylaw, and decibels have nothing to do with it. Sounds plainly audible beyond 150 feet from the source violate our noise bylaw. And no license should be granted that effectively allows for a violation of the law. There's no hardship here. Those 20 people will still be employed if there isn't music 6 hours a week. There are no special circumstances here. This is really simple. If the applicant is determined to provide music, I'm asking this board to hold this applicant to the same standard as virtually every other entertainment providing establishment in Falmouth. Keep the sound indoors, so that way the people who want to hear it absolutely can, and the people who don't want to hear it are not forced to. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on that, on this issue? Okay.
Hi, my name is Paula Lichter. I live in the Heights, across the street from the Shanty. You have my email about my feelings about amplified music. I actually wasn't going to speak tonight, but there are a couple of things I feel that I need to clarify. The first is that I was the person who made the one complaint that went to the police. And Mr. Grosser was right. It is because of what happened after that that other people didn't make the complaints. But the police report didn't say unfounded. It said there was no violation upon my arrival, music or otherwise. And the reason for that is because when I called, I could hear the music 200 feet away. However, 20 minutes later, when Patrolman McGuire got there, it had started to drizzle, and the guitarist had packed up and gone away. So there was no music for the policeman to hear. There were many times that I could hear the music 200 feet away, again, having nothing to do with decibels, but I also took some decibel readings on Deacons Avenue that read 79 and 82. At different times, if you can hear it 200 feet away, it's beyond the 150 feet. When I bought, it was intimated that, you know, when you buy a place, you look around and you see what's next door. When I bought my place 13 years ago, and the other people in my building and the neighbors next door, and the neighbors around, the 465 had always been some kind of a food, restaurant, ice cream shop. There had never been music before. And I do want to clarify that the, excuse me, voice problems here. Mr. Flynn has, for 3 years in a row, said he's tried to work with the neighborhood. This has not been my experience. And actually, may I approach? I'd like to hand out something.
Sure.
You need only read what's in yellow on the various pages. I actually have a copy for the record that I can get. It should take less than a minute to read the Facebook pages, or the Facebook page.
I'm not sure what the relevance of this is.
Can we just get to the actual license? I mean,
Well, what I want to I want to say that if you're going to make a decision based upon the attorney's statement that he's worked with the neighborhood, that statement is incorrect. He did not return Mr. Grosser's phone calls. He did not let us know the very first time that he was coming for an application, so no one was here. And when my attorney asked him to take down the Facebook, it took him 10 days from when the post office said that he got my attorney's letter. He did take it down, but the second thing that I asked is to reinstate the agreement, the verbal agreement that we had, whereby I wouldn't call the police again, that I would ask him first to turn it down if it was disturbing me. And his response was, "We will not assent to any further communication with your client." So here's the thing. I agree with a lot of people here. This is a great place for people to have a good time, and the hours of 4 to 7, not unreasonable. I just think it's the wrong location. The people who come there are not the people who live there. The people who come there are from Precinct 6, Precinct 4, you've heard other precincts. I think this kind of a restaurant would be better located in another area. The only other restaurant in Falmouth that has outdoor music is in the middle of a woods hole in a commercial area where there are no residences within 300 feet. If there's some way that the music can be kept to the shanties area, again, a smaller area than this room, I find no reason why it shouldn't be allowed, as long as it's not broadcast over to, you know, the restaurants across the street, 200 feet away. I think that's all I wanted to say. It's just a great place, but it's the wrong place for it. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Mr. Dufresne?
Ada Dufresne, Precinct 2, and I'm going to repeat, a resident of Falmouth Heights for about 63 years. I'm not here to speak against the restaurant. I've been frequenting that restaurant since my kids were 3, 4, and 5 years old. They're now 60, down to 54. So for a number of years, I went there with my family when it was a family-run restaurant. And it seems like the problem only came in the last couple of years when all of a sudden we decided that we needed amplified entertainment. And the amplified entertainment upset what I feel are the residents in the immediate area of that location. Now, if the restaurant is granted the license that they were given last year, because it's hard to take away something that you've given unless there's a number of complaints. I can understand that, all right? But when they talk about extended hours and amplification, this board has to weigh very, very carefully about what precedents they would be setting, because outdoor entertainment is not allowed, I don't believe, anywhere in the town of Falmouth, with the exception of maybe the band shell. So, again, I'm not speaking against the restaurant. I don't go there anymore, but that's my prerogative. But I did go there for a number of years when it was a quality family-run restaurant, and my kids all enjoyed it. It started out as an ice cream shop, and Shrubs took it over, did a hell of a job, and subsequent owners did a hell of a job, and this guy here is probably doing a hell of a job. But he wants to change the business from what it has been for the last 50 years to an entertainment center. And the residential neighbors have taken a position that if you let the elephant sneak his nose under the tent, first thing you know, the tent collapses. So I want the board to weigh very, very carefully extended entertainment, outdoor amplification. It just doesn't go on that particular location. That patio is no bigger than that section that you people are sitting in. Why it needs amplification, I'll never understand. But I'm not in that business. So I would hope the Board of Selectmen would consider give him back what you've already given him, restrict him to what he already had.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy, could you answer a couple questions for me?
Yes.
Just I want to check with what Mr. Grosser said, that it is your amplifier that's being used?
No,
It's not, it's the musicians?
it's the musicians, yes.
Okay. And is it directed towards the street, or is it directed towards the restaurant
I think
usually?
Luke could answer better than, isn't it? It's going this way, it's not going. Yeah.
But it's usually, so it's a musician brings their own amplifier?
Yes.
It is not yours?
Yes. And I'd like to say something that, that we weren't asking for extended hours.
I know.
Oh, okay.
If I made the joke about this one going to 11, Luke, would that,
You just did, yeah.
So maybe then I will address the question to Lucas too. Do you think it would be possible for an amplifier to be used with a different directional and maybe change the volume so it could be less offensive? You're going to have to come to the microphone. No, and this isn't amplified, so we don't have to worry about that part of it.
Yeah, this is just my opinion, and I am in the business. I'm hard pressed to find that it's an offensive volume, honestly. Like I said, Bobby does walk across the street and check, and that's from my opinion. I like music, so that's different. I like those sounds. It's in a position so the people sitting in the area can hear it, and when people are talking and having conversations, you need to be a little louder than I am right now. If everyone in this room was talking, you wouldn't be able to hear me talking.
I guess then the question is for Mr. Murphy, because I'm trying to find out what you can do, Mr. Flynn, sorry. As to what you can do or are willing to do to help. And
my thoughts on it are this. We have the volume down. Say there's 10 levels on the speakers. It's on number 1. So it's just in the on position. Okay?
I'm sorry, I find that really hard to believe. An application of 1, you're exaggerating a situation that is not to make this work.
I am not. And Luke can speak to this. I am on those guys constantly. I'm not fabricating anything. It is a small area. There's 6 picnic tables there. Maybe the direction of the speaker could be turned.
Right.
And I would be willing to try that. But it really is down as low as it can possibly go. Once people are talking, you need some amplification for everybody at the table to hear it.
Okay. Ms. Moran?
I think we should step back just for a second, because what we're required to look at in terms of the license is whether it's an unreasonable increase in the level of noise in the area. We've had basically 500 statements or a little bit more, about the fact that it's not unreasonable. We've looked at in the area. The area includes the Island Queen making noise. It includes flying bridge events. It includes the various businesses in the area. And the idea of unreasonable, we're talking, the sun hasn't even set by the time the music stops. We're talking about a weekend from 4 to 7. So in looking at what the parameters of what this board can do, it says licensing authorities shall. Doesn't, this isn't like we don't take a poll that, the towns can't be run this way. It says licensing authorities shall grant, unless it's an unreasonable increase in the level of noise in the area.
That's for general entertainment, that's not for outdoor amplification.
No, it's in the area.
Now, outdoor amplification is something that we actually don't have within our regulations. It's an exception that we can grant. And that's an exception that we have granted.
It talks about inside or outside the premises. I think it's fully within our authority, and it does say shall.
Okay. Yes, sir? You have to-
Can you just pick a number? Can you say no greater than 7 until 7, and then just shut it down?
We have it that way.
Can-
7.
No greater than 7 until 7, and then boom.
Well, Mr. Flynn said it hasn't been greater than 1.
No,
so-
and that way
He's
you're
talking
not
about the
taking
time,
it up
7
till 10. You're not
Okay, all right,
taking-
shh, Mike, shh. If you're going to want to speak, you have to come to the podium when you've been recognized. No, I'm sorry. You-
Okay, all right.
Mr. Finneran?
Mark Finneran, Precinct 6, and we have a house on 98 Grand Ave. I know all these people. I don't go there that much, especially early, because it's chock full of children. It's like romper room. But the one thing I want to say is I drive up and down that road all the time. I'll take the long way around to go by the ocean, to go to my mother's house, and I'm there numerous times a day. She's elderly. Don't tell her that. But I have to tell you that just driving up and down, I have seen Bob with his silly little meter up and down the street, across the street, almost up to the church, taking readings. So, I mean, he has been proactive. I've witnessed it on, numerous occasions. At least 3 or 4 or 5 times I've seen him while the music was being played across the street with his meter. So, I mean, he is trying.
Okay. Do you need any more information?
No.
I don't.
No.
No.
Okay.
I have all the information.
He's
Ms.
being-
Lichter?
I just want to make a suggestion. If you're inclined to approve the license, I can ask this of Bob. The amplifier is in front of the building now, and I'm wondering if it could move so that it's on the street facing the building. Okay, so here's Grand Up. Here's where the amp is now, and it goes out this way. Could you move the position here so that the amp is facing into the building? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be talking directly to him without your permission. It
Okay.
was the map. I
We understand the
wanted to
question. You got it?
Okay.
I'll ask Mr. Flynn. Is there a possibility that could work?
We're willing to work with the location of the amplifiers.
Great, thank you. Great. Okay. Sorry for interrupting. I think you all had your information you needed.
I'm going to make a motion to approve. Do you want to do both licenses, or?
Yes.
Is it entertainment and weekend, is that the sufficient?
Saturday and Sunday.
It's all alcohol.
Thank
No,
you. Well,
just
we've done
entertainment.
everything but the two.
We
Yeah,
have.
Yeah.
they're just entertainment.
So the entertainment and the Sunday, I'll make a motion to approve the license.
Second.
The times.
The current time, which is 4 to 7,
As per the application.
as per the application, yes.
Second.
Could we add a little stipulation with a continued effort on Mr. Flynn's part to adjust the amplifier direction and level?
No, I won't make that part of my motion. I think he's already said it formally, he'll work with the neighbors. I don't think that needs to be a stipulation of the license.
I agree. I mean, I certainly welcome his trying to be accommodating. I think that's a valuable thing, but I don't think that's a requirement that we need placing on that. I think, that environment is a noisy environment from the get-go. And a 4 to 7 entertainment the audience is basically families.
Okay.
That's pretty limited.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay? Ayes have it.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah, we still have a couple more things, I think.
Julia, take your time, I dare you.
11 to 1.
You're going to run the meeting while I come, right?
Yeah. Oh, right. I think so.
Okay, so.
Town manager's
Where are we
report.
now?
Oh, he's,
Are you going to throw a tomato? That's fine. I agree with that. I agree with that.
They have a lot of business to do. They have a lot of work.
4 meetings this month. Four meetings this month alone.
yep.
What is Doug
We're in the
doing?
same club.
Is he
He
making
just had to go
sure?
pick something up. Did he want you to go forward?
Yeah, let's go forward.
That was a different form of government, Andy.
How are you? Good to see you.
Yeah, it was.
What?
What? What'd you say?
You should.
Just think what it was like when we were
They
on the
act
heights
like-
raising Cain and someone said that you can't have your.
You had to pick something up.
Oh, well, I won't.
Oh, right,
Do you want you to have
He was serious, I thought
You
you
wanna-
said- Okay, we're back to order, please. Town managers
Just have
report.
3. Yeah.
Excuse
Okay.
me, we're back to order.
Thank you, Madam
Yeah.
Town
Chair.
manager report.
Yeah.
It was my pleasure to join Doug Jones and Rebecca Moffett at the monthly beach committee meeting this past Wednesday evening. I was also pleased to attend the monthly Chamber of Commerce business after
Sir?
hours.
Sir, the meeting is continuing, thank you.
On Thursday evening of the week past at the History Center. And I also wanted to note to the board that given the failure to achieve a positive majority vote from the Recreation Committee at their recent meeting, we are now considering other alternatives to the Gus County Community Center for potential archiving purposes, and that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other reports? Ms. Moffett?
I would like for us to discuss what our thoughts are about the Wednesday funeral. If we were talking about going in a group together, say the 5 of us, I think that the order in going into the church, that the selectmen should be coming in at some position after policemen or whatever.
I'm going to move that we adjourn the meeting, and I don't think we have to have that be part of our business.
I agree.
But then we can
Just
discuss it, because we
discuss
also
it
have
when we chose.
some birthday cake we have to eat at the same time we discuss it, so.
I second.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh.
Motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Aye, we're adjourned.